After 3 months of Akira and some random movies I've covered, I am back with Mob Psycho. This time we will end off where Season 1 ended, with the 7th Division arc. Will this wrap up everything that has happened up to this point? We will see. So without any more hesitation, let us begin. We see Mob waking up at Hanazawa's apartment after losing consciousness last time, and he is informed that Ritsu has been kidnapped. Mob threatens Dimple by asking him if he's responsible for this, but before he can answer, Hanazawa steps in and says he's accountable, and that the organization have been haunting him for a while, and advises Mob not to get involved. Mob still wants to get Ritsu back, so Hanazawa gives him some information about the organization. They're called Claw and have 100 members. He also says Claw is the only organization that has successfully made super weapons, and they're confused of where their location is. Hanazawa has an idea and meets up with the founder of the Awakened Lab, who is tied up. He splashes water on him to get some information about him. The guy says he sold out Mob, but he learned that Ritsu was the one he sold out after he learned that one of the guys talking to him is Mob himself. They decide to free the guy and prove to him that they're psychic users. We then get a scene with Claw where they're taking Ritsu and the psychic kids away, but not before the two of them meet a new character with fancy facial hair, who is informed that there is one psychic kid that they forgot about, so he goes and get him. Meanwhile, Hanazawa decides that he'll join Mob in saving Ritsu, since he has to eventually fight Scar, the company Underclaw. But as they talk about it, they meet the fancy facial hair guy. We learn that his name is Terada, but that isn't important since Hanazawa ties him up and waterboards him for information, and he gives the group information, but they hardly believe him. He then tells them about the boss of Claw and is brought with when Hanazawa, Mob, and Dimple decide to go to their base. We see some of the Scar members having a meeting and arguing amongst themselves before the 7th Division leader stops their argument and reminds them that the boss is coming next month and not to make a bad impression. We also see Ritsu and the psychic kids locked in a cell, and this long-faced person takes one of the twins and kills him. This gets the group worried for escaping, but the other twin says that they should escape and that his brother is fine. They also learn that the long-faced guy's ability is illusion making. Meanwhile, Hanazawa, Mob, and Dimple, and Terada makes it to where the base is, and Terada leaves the group because he has to pee. But it turns out that was a lie, and he tries to attack the group, but fails and gets trapped in some trees, thanks to Mob. The three of them make it to the entrance and take out the guards, and after they're knocked out, Dimple takes over one of their bodies and enter the place. Meanwhile, Ritsu and the psychic kids talk about escape and learn their names. They make a key, and when the guards act cocky, thinking that was their only plan, Ritsu is able to control his powers and take them out. We also learn that the twin is trapped in a room with the long-faced guy and 6 other men. Mob's group enter the building and gets spotted by a guard, who Mob and Hanazawa takes care of. But turns out they're being wiretapped by the punk guy from last time, Koyama, who wants to take revenge on Mob. He eventually goes where the three of them are and gets ready to fight Mob, but Mob easily defeats him before they move on. It was never a fair fight to begin with. We see the 7th Division captain telling recruits to fight the intruders even if they don't have combat experience. We then see the 6 people holding one of the twins captive argue among themselves, while Ritsu sneaks in and gets busted. Ritsu asks if he can leave with enough threat, and his power that makes one guy just let him go. Dimple, in the guard's body, makes it to the elevator and meets some of the members from Claw. They already know he's an imposter and try to attack him, but Dimple handled them pretty well. Suddenly, one of the higher-ups of Claw appear by the name Matsuo, and he fights Dimple. Hanazawa learns that the 6 captive have escaped and try to leave, but one of the people he fought tries to sneak up on him. He easily defeats him again, but before he can finish him off, a giant fire wave hits behind him. Turns out it's a sky higher up by the name Miyagawa. Hanazawa tries to protect himself, but it only works for a short time. So he decides to provoke Miyagawa into attacking him, in which he does, and Hanazawa deflects the attack back to Miyagawa, hitting him with his own fire, taking him out. However, his break is cut short for when Yusuke Sakurai appears and gets ready with his sword, but stops since he was only a distraction, so Murikai could knock him out, taking Hanazawa captive. Mob is surrounded by a bunch of wooden dolls that belongs to this child by the name Mukai, and the person next to her, Tsuchiya, tells her to take him out. She goes to find him, but returns back by telling her that the guy, Mob, had taken out all her dolls without an issue. This angers Tsuchiya and tells her to show where he is. Meanwhile, Ritsu's group is surrounded by enemies, which he takes out easily, but suddenly a kid appears and gets ready to attack Ritsu. The two have a fight while the psychic kids are shocked that Ritsu even wants to fight the kid. Tsuchiya confronts Mob and starts to attack him. Mob allows her to attack him, but eventually he tells her that he doesn't want to fight a woman, and that his master, Reigen, taught him not to raise a hand against a woman, which makes her tell him to go all out against her. Meanwhile, Dimple is fighting Matsuo and has a very small chance of beating him. He gets beaten so badly that he fakes slipping and runs in his spirit body, and Matsuo tells his dog to not let him get away. But at this point, Dimple is just messing with him, but then Matsuo tells him something that puts fear in Dimple's face. We then cut to Tsuchiya having been defeated by Mob, and this makes the spot scar guy by the name Takeuchi want to fight him, so he leaves to fight Mob. Hanazawa warns them that they have already lost since Mob is more powerful the more emotional he gets, but the three in the room shrug his comment off by saying that they're special before we see Takeuchi defeated by Mob. Reigen is worried for Mob since he hasn't come to work due to having a client. Meanwhile, Mob finds Ritsu unconscious and gets angry. The long-faced guy appears and tries to get Mob, but his anger makes him produce electrical power so strong it takes out the long-faced guy, but also knocks out Mob. We see the guy Ritsu fought talk about how strong their brotherly bond is, before we see the 7th Division captain reflect on what the boss would think when he heard that 7 of the SCAR members were taken out. We then see the 5 Psychic Kids escape, only to see a person surrounded by Claw members, and they think it's the Claw boss, but we all know it's our boy Reigen. Meanwhile, Mob gains consciousness and finds himself in a room that makes it so they can't use their psychic powers, with Hanazawa and Ritsu in the room. Ritsu is happy to see Mob is fine, and Mob is glad to see Ritsu and hugs him. Hanazawa questions if they can even escape, which makes Mob say that Ritsu is smarter than him and he'll probably figure it out, which puts Ritsu in tears. Reigen is stopped by Claw members outside and manages to convince them that he's the Claw boss, unintentionally, and the members lead him to where Mob, Ritsu, and Hanazawa is being held. We also get a scene with the 7th Division captain and Sakurai talking with each other, and the kid joins the conversation, and we also learn the kid's name is Suzuki. Reigen makes it to the cell, and Reigen is able to convince to let the 3 leave, even if it confused everybody. And as they're leaving, they're stopped by the 7th Division captain, who confirms that Reigen isn't the Claw boss, and ends with the 2 parties fighting. The 7th Division is doing a great amount of damage that Ritsu, Hanazawa, and especially Reigen can't keep up with. Mob tries to join, but Reigen tells him not to due to the rule he made for him. Reigen tries to stop Mob from attacking, but this ends with him being slashed by Sakurai, which shocks Mob. However, Reigen is able to get back up, since when he tried to stop Mob from using his powers were leaking and Reigen were able to absorb it. He uses the powers to dominate the fight against the 7th Division, even stopping a black hole. Like, how the fuck? The 7th Division and Mob's group are arguing about powers and how it's important and makes you special, and that the powers mean nothing respectively. We see the captain's face, ew, and Reigen runs out of power, which Mob is also out of power. The captain is about to finish them off, but Suzuki takes him out, saying that the 7th Division is worthless and calling Mob a wuss. He says he's disappointed with the 7th Division, at least from the inside, looking at Ritsu and saying his goodbyes before teleporting away. Matsuo tries to continue the fight, but Dimple appears and takes him out. They all leave after that. We see Suzuki giving a report to the Claw boss, and he does not want to hear anything about it from him. And as life returns to normal after this, the student council president regrets what he did and apologizes to Onigawara, only for him to say he knew everybody hated him, and that his actions only made the reason for that to hate him even more, and that he doesn't really care, and told him to scram while he runs after the Body Improvement Club, having joined them. We also see Dimple and Reigen interact, and Hanazawa decides to train with the Awakened Lab and the Psychic Kids. The volume ends with Mob upset over what Suzuki told him, and Ritsu cheers him up, and Dimple eating a spirit, which makes Reigen sick. Overall, good arc. It was longer than the usual, and yet it was a good arc with enough action and comedy for us to enjoy. Next time, I'm going to cover 2 arcs, which sounds like me being lazy, but the first arc I'm going to cover is a bit too short for me to cover in one video. It's literally 2 chapters. Don't judge me. Also, you'll probably see me cover multiple arcs in one video if an arc is way too short for a video. Trust me. You'll see it soon. So next time I'll be covering the Mob's Girlfriend mini arc and the Urban Legend arc.
But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys, well, next time. Bye-bye.